have a history of working with Taika Waititi, and it was expected of us, I think, to come up with something a little unexpected.
Sheesh, that was intense.
What am I going to do?
No idea.
Got it! I will
Burn
negotiate.
down the house and blame Winston Churchill.
Well, I read Jojo Rabbit in 2013. Taika had written it earlier than that, but we had tried to make it back in 2014, but we didn't really know how to achieve the scale that the film required. And back then it was going to be quite a low-budget production. And things were difficult around that time for getting it off the ground, so it was shelved for quite some time.
Yeah.
And then Fox Searchlight picked it up, and they gave us just enough money to pull off a version of the screenplay that Taika was going to be happy with. But key to that success was taking the project to the Czech Republic and using some amazing skilled technicians there to help us build a $1 million art department into like something that looked like it was 20 times that.
If I tell on you, you'll be in big trouble.
They'll never win.
So do you have any issues with this, with maybe tourists or maybe people around watching all the Nazi banners, all the Nazi uniforms? Do you have any issues with that?
We had some issue with mostly with historical art professionals who wanted to know why we were being so bold with some of our colours and some of the artistic choices that we made, because they felt that it wasn't necessarily 100% period accurate, but our version of the world was supposed to be enhanced a little by this young boy's experience, and they went to know that until the film was released. But also, we shot in two small towns in the Czech Republic called Žatec and Uštěk, and the population there, the locals, had some genetic memory or 2 generations worth of stories to tell us about their experience of when the Nazi Party came and started kind of their rhetoric, or started to kind of manipulate the minds of the locals. And, you know, we benefited from these discussions because it almost legitimized the work that we were doing, because we had these first-hand accounts, albeit from the next generation, but it was a dialogue because, hey, it wasn't that long ago that Nazi flags hung in this square.
Yeah.
You're doing it again. And I think in Europe, people are more open to speak about what happened because it's not a thing that should be not spoken about.
Yeah.
Whereas in places like America, nobody wants to admit to anything that could possibly be bad. So, you know, we need to encourage people to open up and kind of have a dialogue about this stuff, because whether we like it or not, there are pockets of our fellow human population who still support that terrible behaviour, you know. Discussion is great.
You're not a Nazi, Jojo. You're a 10-year-old kid who likes dressing up in a funny uniform and wants to be part of a club.
Just preceding the Second World War, and most especially the German aesthetic that was happening around the 1930s, leading up to the fall of Germany under Nazi rule. And some of the cultural successes of German art were affected by the Nazi occupation, the Nazi takeover of the German public mind. And one of these movements was the Bauhaus movement, and that was a strong indicator for us that the world that we're used to seeing portrayed in Second World War films is not brown and dusty. It isn't old, falling apart buildings. It's actually Germany before the Allies took over was a beautiful, culturally sophisticated place and people. And so we took leads from the colours of the art at the time and the period fashion, and we put those into the visual narrative of Jojo Rabbit. And I think that also helped inspire the childlike memory of Johannes Betzler and his experience of growing up. The other thing that happened for Johannes while we transitioned through the story, the colour values change with his maturity or his experience of the world, and the more kind of the more his ideal notion of his world fell apart, the less saturated and a little more somber things became.
I don't know if you heard this, but many people were comparing the art of this movie with Wes Anderson's movies. I don't know if you... And how does it make you feel?
I don't think I can do this.
Was? Of course you can.
Aber dann kamst du.
I'm a great fan of Wes Anderson's work, and I sort of agree in some ways, but because we were sticking with a true period representation, apart from the slightly more colourful version, it just happens to be a similar sort of style. Wes Anderson he does really love a period look to his films, and it just happens to be like a 1940s kind of European attitude to their art direction.
Yeah.
There was a bit of an effort to try and avoid being too similar. So, instead of being dusty and kind of muted with and pastel with our colorways, we actually went for deeper saturation, and that kind of helped to, separate it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because Wes Anderson in the 1940s, focusing on children, is kind of always going to be a little same. All I do is provide the avenue for Taika to tell the story. So we're there to support with ideas for props and for backgrounds and for being conducive to the story first and foremost. But that sometimes can mean that if you have a really great performance from a character, you want to give them a very simple stage to perform on, a very plain background or something that doesn't fight too much with the character performance. And then if you have something that is a little more romantic or dramatic, and there's not so much character performance, then we add, as an art department, we add texture and layers and lots of kind of busy elements to create a scene that sort of speaks more of a mood and is more visual than what would be needed if there was a great character. All of our costumes and props were period correct. The element that helped kind of build on the characters was the way that they were worn. So, if we needed a comedic character in a Nazi youth uniform, we would make maybe the uniform just a little bit small. If there's somebody with big knees and very tall and lanky, and we wanted to play that up, then we'd maybe shrink the scale a little bit just to give them a bit more character life.
Yeah.
And perhaps if the actor is too small, then we give them slightly oversized clothes so that they feel a little bit uncomfortable.
You two seem to be getting on well.
She doesn't seem like a bad person.
How was working with Taika as a director, also as a writer and as an actor too? I don't know if he was directing as Hitler as well while you were shooting.
It was very difficult for him, I think, to swing between all of those different roles. Even though he is very clever, he still needs to be able to jump in and out of character. And I feel for any performer that's quite a task.
Yeah.
So we had Taika Waititi as our director and writer, and we had Taika Waititi's version of, actually it was Johannes Betzler's version of Adolf Hitler to work with when he was in character as an actor.